My name is Robert Hanson. I have a PhD in the built environment from University College London, and that PhD is in acoustic comfort. So that involves studying wavelengths for sound. But my interest in light bulbs comes because I'm also qualified as a barrister in England and Wales, and I spent quite a lot of time in the Royal Courts of Justice in London. And I found that in the old courts that had natural lighting and the incandescent light, I had huge amounts of energy and I was mentally very, very alert. But in the newer courts that had this fluorescent tube lighting, I was absolutely exhausted and mentally dead.
It sounds fascinating, but look, the idea of an incandescent bulb, is this just the old-fashioned circular type, spherical type tungsten filaments?
The incandescent light bulb is a tungsten light bulb. They normally used to come in 40 watt, 60 watt, 100 watt, and some 150 watt. A tungsten light bulb. That's exactly what it is.
So what's the difference?
The key thing, I'm not going to be too technical, but you need just a little bit of understanding. Visible light goes from 380 to 700 nanometers. Short wavelength is about 380 to 450 nanometers, and that's called blue light. That's a very powerful wavelength. Above that, sort of the 500 to 700 is a long wavelength, and that is a very healthy wavelength. The incandescent light bulb produces long wavelengths in this sort of 500 to 700 nanometer range, and this particular wavelength repairs the body cells, and it gives the body energy. The LEDs and the CFLs, they focus in this sort of 400 range. That's where they peak.
Sorry, a CFL is?
Compact fluorescent light bulb. It's a tube. There's the tube light, which is called the fluorescent light, and there's the curly-whirly light bulb, which is called the compact fluorescent light bulb.
Okay, so I'm wondering, the old-fashioned long tube light bulbs, they were, the old fluorescent tubes, we call them. These are essentially then, are you saying that they are kind of shrunk and curled around to make low-energy light bulbs?
Yes, they're shrunk and curled around to make the compact fluorescent light bulb. Same thing. Same light spectrum. Exactly.
Okay, so now we know a little bit about the different types of bulbs. What about the effects?
The effects are the incandescent light bulb, because it's producing this longer wavelength, this tungsten light bulb, which is the heat from it, that is a wavelength that repairs the cells of the body, generates cells in the body, and it converts the food energy, when you eat food, and that converts that into real energy in the body.
Okay, so look, how does it do that? That's amazing. Just a bit of light falling on you is you have to fall on your skin, I take it?
It falls onto the skin and it penetrates into the skin and into the cells, and that's how it does it. If you think about how plants grow, how trees grow, they all need the light. The body needs the light. The cells of the body need this particular light spectrum. Okay,
and yet some of that, you're saying the higher wavelengths can be harmful. Just give us an idea of the different effects of the incandescent bulbs, the tungsten old-fashioned bulbs, and these new compact fluorescent bulbs.
Well, both the compact fluorescent light bulb and the light-emitting diode, LED, they produce this short wavelength. It's the short wavelength, not the long wavelength, that does harm. Short wavelength, that's this sort of 400 to 450 nanometers. Short, powerful light that is destroying the body's cells. And it also has a very bad impact on the eye. The short wavelength gets behind the retina, and that can cause macular degeneration of the eye. This is the findings of one of the most famous eye surgeons on the planet, somebody called Professor John Marshall, at the same university as me, University College London. He's developed the modern laser eye surgery techniques. He's a proper eye surgeon, not just an academic, famous in the field, and he's got a whole database of evidence that shows exposure to LEDs and CFL cause macular degeneration of the eye, leading to cataracts and reduced vision.
Amazingly enough, it's now apparently illegal to sell these healthy light bulbs. What's gone wrong? What's happened?
what happened was there was a UK ban because the EU said you shall ban those light bulbs. There was no discussion about this in Parliament whatsoever. The EU did it because they wanted to reduce what's called greenhouse gas emissions, carbon dioxide emissions, and they saw these incandescent light bulbs as using more energy than the compact fluorescent light bulbs. Therefore, they decided to ban the incandescent light bulb. And I think it's the first time I know where governments have actually banned a safe product, a healthy product in the incandescent light bulb, and actually promoted a product that they knew, and they did know, don't let anybody take you away from this, they knew these CFLs and LEDs would cause negative effects on health.
Is it possible to make CFLs and LED bulbs which emit that warmer light, as if, they were, same sort of light as the old-fashioned bulbs?
You cannot make them, no. Absolutely impossible. But what you can do, and it's quite sneaky in a way, is you can make them appear to be the same colour. So you could take the LED and you could paint it red or paint it orange or something, and it would appear like the old-fashioned incandescent light bulb, but it would not be the same wavelength.
Can you tell us a bit about how these different wavelengths, and I imagine, because I know the fluorescent bulbs used to flash, didn't they, at a very, very high rate. At least the thing with the tungsten bulbs is that they emit a constant stream of light. I would imagine, actually, though, it may be related to the frequency of the electricity going through it. Say if you've got 50 hertz, I think it is in Britain, isn't it? You would probably get a 50 hertz flash rate from that. But there is a bit of a problem, isn't there, with light bulbs which are flashing fast, a bit like a television. It can have an effect, or an old-fashioned TV anyway, it can have an effect which is almost imperceptible. It can actually affect you mentally to have that flashing going on, which is just below the threshold that you can perceive with your eyes.
Yeah, the tube lightings particularly, they do flicker, and you can see them, particularly as they get older, when they're right at the end of their life cycle, it looks as though they're having an epileptic fit. You can see a doof, doof, doof kind of explosive flicker. That's there all the time. It just becomes apparent as they get older. So that flicker also has a negative impact, as you say, on headaches and causing fatigue. But the real cause is this hidden factor of the wavelength that nobody's talking about. And you should be particularly concerned about it because you've now got LED street lighting. This is a major problem because when it's dark, dark at night, there is no sunlight to produce the near-infrared light to counterbalance the LEDs, perhaps in some offices where you've got windows and sunlight coming in the daytime, you can balance it with the sun. But at night time, there's no balance at all, and all you've got now with the LED street lamp is this negative cell-destroying light. That's a massive concern because these are on at a time when there is no sunlight. Very, very, very big problem are the LED streetlights at night. And what they do is they cause sleep problems because they destroy the melatonin in the body, and this is why more people are taking melatonin problems to help with sleep problems. And when you're not sleeping at night, you're feeling more fatigued, you get more of the sort of headaches, and you're feeling more and more run down. And so the LED street lighting is a particular problem.
We've also heard that the LEDs and the CFLs aren't quite so easy to recycle. In fact, I think the CFLs even contain mercury, which is highly toxic. So one does wonder if this has been a step backwards. What about this recyclability?
They claim to be recyclable, and they're supposed to have all the CFLs and LEDs are supposed to be recycled. They are supposed, or I use the word supposed because they're supposed to meet a certain standard, to only have a certain amount of mercury in them. But in reality, to pass a test, you send a light bulb to a testing lab, you get a certificate saying it's passed the test and it's got a low amount of mercury. But once it's passed that test, these things are then made in India, in China, all over the place, and it's been found through actual real testing that they contain a massive amount of mercury, a lot more mercury vapor than the ones that were tested and signed off on. It's a little bit like the diesel cars, where you have what's called a golden car. You create get it on the road, the diesel cars are producing 7 and 8 times more nitrogen oxides than they should be. Same with the compact fluorescent light. It's producing a lot more mercury than it claims to be producing. And interestingly, the manufacturer, the patent owners, this is the key thing, the people that own the patents for these, which would be the Osram, Philips and General Electric, they all have exclusion clauses. If one of the light bulbs breaks, you've got to wear a mercury mask, wear special gloves, open the windows, turn off the air conditioning. People are not aware of this. People are not being told this. But if you wanted to sue those companies and you didn't go through that procedure, you wouldn't be able to sue them. They've covered themselves, but they're not telling you about the exclusion clauses that they have.
People don't always dispose through recycling of these compact fluorescent light bulbs or LEDs. You might just as well find someone just chuck it out of the window into the street.
That's what often happens. Certainly what I see in sort of dustbins around here, you'll get the tube lighting stuffed in a bin somewhere, or just the compact fluorescent light bulb thrown in the dustbin. Unfortunately, the cleaner, who's perhaps not always as well educated, he's been brainwashed into thinking this is a green light bulb, an energy-saving light bulb, therefore it is a good thing. They're not alert to this, and they just picking up this broken mercury, breathing in the mercury vapor, dealing with the toxins. They don't realise it. The impact on the human body is not instant, it's cumulative. 10, 15 years down the line, he may develop a cancer. Trying to prove the cause of that, absolutely impossible.
Take us back to this doctor in London and the studies done on this. What were the methods used, and what conclusions did he draw?
He is based on actual real patients that he with.
Can you just remind us of his name again?
His name is Professor John Marshall. You can Google him. He's on Wikipedia, all the usual places, and on the University College website. I think he's put articles in some of the popular newspapers as well that will show that this short wavelength is increasing the amount of age-related macular degeneration of the eye. That's his big thing. And he himself will only ever use incandescent light bulbs.
Now, have you got any evidence that this had a real effect on you? You know, it could just surely be circumstantial that you were feeling tired on the day you were working in an office with LED bulbs or compact fluorescent bulbs.
No, this is over a period of at least a decade. I mean, it's a long period of time, and you can pick out the patterns. So at first you're not sure what's causing it, and then every time you go under it, you're not feeling great. You're not feeling great. You go to the other room, and you're feeling good. And then I wrote at the time, about many years ago, I wrote to the British government, and they said, it's just you. Everybody else is fine by this. And then it turned out, actually, when I started to talk to other people, they were also suffering the same problem. And more people were suffering the same problem. And there's an organisation set up, originally was called Spectrum Alliance. Now it's called Light Aware. Light Aware, if somebody can look at that, please do. And there are people of different ages, different genders, different races, living in different parts of the world who feel the exact same effects when they're in a room with LEDs and CFLs. So it's not circumstantial, it's not race-based, it's not age-based, it's not gender-based, it's across a whole range of people.
I mean, isn't this a price we've got to pay for only using something like a quarter of the amount of energy to light our homes?
Well, first, whoa. Got to pick you up on that point. And light does not take a lot of energy in your home. It's a very, very, very small amount of energy consumption. Incredibly small amount. It's not a huge consumer of energy. It sounds a lot because you're talking 40 watts, 60 watts, 100 watts. But energy is measured usually in kilowatt hours. So it's not a lot of energy. Overall, it's a very small amount of energy. Secondly, these things do not use a lot of energy to produce. They don't really need any recycling recycling costs attached to them, and human health is worth a hell of a lot more to me than saving a couple of dollars or pounds in energy per year on a light bulb. We spend that on food, you spend it on clothes, you might spend it on a record or a CD. I want to spend it on a light bulb. If you want to use a Tesla car, you're going to use a lot more energy than me. If you use a train, electric train, you're using more energy. People should be given a choice and make an informed decision on how they want to consume energy and what they want to go and do. The problem with the British government and the European Union and all the green groups they sponsor is that people are not allowed to give an informed choice because they are only told one aspect of a light bulb, energy, and all the rest of it, all the things I've been talking about today, you just don't read about, apart from in weird academic journals, or sorry, not weird, but respected academic journals by respected eye specialists, respected medics, but the popular press will not cover it.
I mean, there's also the matter of how much the light bulbs actually cost to produce in energy terms. But just tell us about your experience, because you're in Hong Kong and you had a go at actually talking to the people who ran a club that you were a member of, where you decided that you would try and get them to go back to using the tungsten bulbs. And I'm not sure what the situation is in Hong Kong. Maybe you can tell us that it is quite legal to use tungsten bulbs there still.
There is no ban on the incandescent light bulb in Hong Kong. That you can still go to a shop and buy the 40 watt, the 60 watt, the 100 watt light bulb. There is simply no ban on the bulb. So they're readily available. There's not a problem in buying them. And the particular club, the Foreign Correspondence Club, it's a journalist club in Hong Kong. I was a member there for approximately about 4 years. I did enjoy it there. Everything was incandescent, tungsten lighting, and a great place. Then they changed the lighting in the bar to the LED. I went there and instantly just felt bad. So I asked them, could they change it back? Or, at the very least, could they guarantee me that the bar downstairs would remain all incandescent? And they wouldn't do that. And they said there's no evidence that LEDs pose a risk to human health yet. There is over 100 academic papers by doctors, eye specialists, pointing out the fact that there is a massive problem with this. And when you have the president of the Foreign Correspondence Club, who's one of the main journalists with the AFP, telling me this, I'm concerned about the media, that this mainstream media that is not critical, is non-thinking, and just always takes the government line. This is an example of, the mainstream media just not doing its job. It's just repeating rubbish, it's repeating junk. And even if you take, as a school kid, the very basics of light spectrum, as a kid you learn, violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red, or Richard of York gave battle in vain. You learnt about spectrum, before even in primary school I learned this stuff. You knew that short wavelengths did you harm. If you stop to think for a second, you've got to start asking the question, why are we using these short wavelength lighting? And here you have, the president of a journalist club not consulting with people, just steamrolling through, forcing it on people, saying there's no evidence when there clearly is evidence. I've sent you some links to papers. You can look at them yourself. And Lightaware themselves wrote to the club saying, we'll give you a talk. We'll get you a famous professor, a proper light surgeon, a proper eye surgeon to give you a talk. And the club just ignored it. And instead of that, suspended me from membership for 6 months because I complained about this stuff. And then eventually I just resigned.
Well, that's a shame, because you could be still there in the bar arguing your case. Look, I wonder whether there's a black market developing in Britain in these, because I would imagine for anybody that does have health problems that thinks they might be linked to lighting, and let's face it, cases of epilepsy have been linked in the past to fluorescent tubes. Most definitely, it can actually induce epileptic fits. That's been proven. Then they could, for example, have one room in their house which is with the tungsten bulbs, and another one which is LEDs and CFLs, and then they could basically they could see for themselves if their mood changed. But is there a black market likely to develop or already developing in Britain?
I think quite a lot of people, when they were faded out, just stocked up with them. I've got friends that come from England, they visit Hong Kong, and they just take a whole suitcase back with them. So they buy the bulbs here and then just take them back into the UK. There's nothing to stop that from happening because it's for personal use. The ban is not to import them for sale or to sell new stock. If a shop had existing stock, it can sell that. It just can't import new bulbs for sale. So people can actually buy them on the internet, or just go abroad and buy them and bring them back if they wanted to get around it. But the problem is in the workplace. We need to go to work, and yet you're going to be forced into an office that's going to have the bad lighting, and you're probably going to have a boss who won't care.
Well, but the thing is, we may even have bosses that think to themselves, well, I'd like to have my staff working efficiently, happily, contentedly. I'm going to get some of these bulbs. Maybe,
but the problem is what you have are the green groups like the WWF, Friends of the Earth, who are sponsored by Philips and have received huge grants from the European Union. Again, you can check this on the internet, and they go around persuading things like hotel chains and large companies to use this lighting and to commit to this type of lighting in the name of saving the planet. And the resources they have for actually pushing this are huge compared to what individuals actually have. Interestingly, the European Union does have a clause in this eco-design directive that reads that no product should negatively impact on health. I mean, that applies to 5G as well. Now, there's been a lot of talk about that. It applies to CF and LEDs. But this is the sting in the tail. If you want to take them on, you're going to have a lot of money. Because if you lose, you're going to have to pay all their legal costs. And you'd have to take on the British government, the European Union, and the bulb manufacturers and the patent owners, because they would lose money out of it, therefore they've got a legal interest, and you'd be taking them all on, and you'd have a first case, you'd have a court of appeal, a court of final appeal, European Court of Justice, and you'd be bankrupt if you to take any of them on. And that's probably the same with the 5G issue as well. These companies you can't touch them, and because they have taxpayers' money.
Now, Robert, you're a lawyer. How about if a homeless person was to take them on?
That would actually, well, if a homeless person was to take them on, somebody that only means, yes, that would work. But Joe, anybody that's got if they've saved up and bought a house or got any savings, you're going to lose that. So you've got to have somebody that's got no assets whatsoever, and you've got to find a lawyer skilled in European law who would do this for you.
Well, Robert Hanson from Hong Kong, thanks very much for joining us. And also, I'll just remind listeners that the campaign is called Light Aware, and I'll put a link to that on our show page at dialectradio.co.uk. So, Robert Hanson, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for giving me time on air. Thank you very much indeed.
That was Richard Hanson speaking to us from Hong Kong about the adverse effects of low-energy light bulbs, that's the compact fluorescent light bulbs, CFLB, and the LED light-emitting diodes.
You're listening to Dialectradio.co.uk, your local community radio run by volunteers. Log on to our website at dialectradio.co.uk to find out more.